So what can a $181 billion organization tell us about creating better stories? We are specifically going to be looking at this in the context of the Disney villains and how they've evolved over the years, specifically from like the 90s heyday villains to the villains of today, and how you can include this in your writing to create more compelling stories. I'm Katie Momo. I'm a copywriter. I'm obsessed with story, writing, and Disney, so I'm combining all three of these, and I think it'll be really interesting, or at least I hope it'll be interesting. It's interesting for me. I'm really fun at parties, I swear. Anyway, let's get into it. So the Disney villains of like the 90s, they had a really specific villain. In fact, there's an entire like line of merchandise and toys and games that are specifically about the villains. Anyone played Villainous? Anyone find it confusing and hard? Just me? Okay, anyway. So like, let's look at those classics. We have like Scar from The Lion King. We've got Ursula from Little Mermaid. You can just literally point to them and go, that's the bad guy or the bad girl. But we look at a lot of more modern Disney stories and we don't have that same thing. If we look at Frozen, it's more of an internal struggle, right? Like Elsa is dealing with some mental health issues. She maybe has anxiety and depression. She's dealing with self-doubt. She's dealing with her own identity, so like accepting who she is, loving herself for that, maybe sexual identity. There's a lot of things at play there, but there's no actual external villain like the 90s, which they're very much an external source. Now we're dealing with these more sophisticated, much more multi-layered sources of internal struggles. If we look at Encanto, it appears like Bruno is a bad guy, right? Like, if for all intents and purposes, he really presents that way. But when we get into the story, we realize, no, he's an antagonist, but he's not a bad guy at all. He's just misunderstood. And these more complex things, I think, are really important messages, especially for kids who are watching this to understand. Now, back in the day, like, let's go to Bambi, and you know, the legendary Bambi's mom gets shot. It's horrible. We don't want to think about it, but the thing I want you to think about here is back in the day, we kind of thought kids needed something that was like really relatable to them. Like they could understand the fear of a parent dying, right? Like it wasn't thought that maybe kids had these sort of like deeper layers and could understand them. However, I think it's proven kids really respond to it. So the shift that we've seen is going from an external source to an internal source. And I mean, there's different layers. You could argue that maybe the Little Mermaid's driver was actually like, you know, her internal desire, but there is still a villain that is like the main antagonist of the show. So that is what you can bring into your own writing, whether it's copywriting like me, maybe you're writing fiction or whatever you're writing. Oh, also Disney always have cute sidekicks. We just have Henry walking in. So think about what are the external conflicts, what is getting in your character's way, and the internal conflicts, what is the internal thing that's stopping them? When you can identify those, or sometimes maybe it's a combination in real life, there's usually, you know, a variety of things. But when you're able to really hone in on the thing that is stopping somebody, then your writing becomes really real. It feels so honest and relatable for people because they have been in those same situations themselves. So if you like this video, like, subscribe, comment. I can't wait to hear your input. I know that this is a very multi-layered topic, and I only wanted to get into sort of like the baseline and give you something practical that you can use in your own writing.